Good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much to everybody who has congratulated me for my Climate Champion Award. I wouldn't be able to do it, of course, without the awesome team here at WCNC Charlotte, my support from management, and of course my awesome other meteorologists on my team, Brad, my awesome, amazing chief, Larry, Chris, and of course KJ too. But let's talk about the forecast. And of course the amazing viewers at home that oftentimes send amazing, feedback, whether or not it is constructive feedback as well as positive feedback as well on the stories we do. Okay, let's talk about the forecast. So, upcoming heat wave, we eventually are going to return to above average heat and humidity by Monday. And I know we've talked about this so much this summer, but we've had prolonged stretches of not just above average heat, but heat that we don't really even see into July and August. And some of it is July and August heat, but we saw it in June. And so with the above average heat, prolonged heat, we're kind of buckling up for it again Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So just know that it's coming. So try to get out and I guess enjoy the next 2 days if you can. I wouldn't say it's going to feel amazing outside Saturday and Sunday, but it is going to be a little bit better than what we have upcoming for the week. So the wind is going to be 11 to 8. The what is going to be heat index values back above 105 degrees. So you'll need plenty of breaks to hydrate. And I mentioned this during the newscast earlier today, but you also need to make sure that you are staying, hydrated, but also trying to make sure as much as possible staying cool at night. I know this can be especially hard during the summer. Trust me, I get it. I'm in the same boat. We're all worried, about power bills, things like that. It's hard to cool off, houses, apartments, and all those things during the summer when we have the above average heat and humidity. But doing anything you can, taking, a cool bath, putting, your feet in ice water, anything you can to kind of cool you off. And of course, if you have any kind of medical conditions, you should consult your doctor before you do anything, that you don't already do. You need to cool off at night because your cardiovascular system and your respiratory system does rely on cooling off during nighttime to reset you for the day. And when that doesn't happen, you start the next day already kind of in that negative space. And so that actually can impact your health even more when we're in the middle of a heat wave. So just be mindful of that and try to keep that in mind as we move forward into another kind of 3-day stretch where we have the above average heat and humidity. I know we could also kind of get into this space where we have so much heat and humidity. We're hearing about it all the time. We're kind of getting exhausted just kind of hearing the words heat wave or hearing the words heat index, hearing the words heat advisory. But just know that no matter how many times we have to say it, we still want you to stay safe. So please stay weather aware starting Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So today we have a heat index around 101. That is more typical for July standards. Sunday around 103. Once we hit 103, that's when heat exhaustion becomes more likely. But once we hit 105, and that's the threshold for the heat advisory, the reason why the National Weather Service does start issuing those heat advisories in the Carolinas once we get close to 105 is that's when our bodies start to become more susceptible to heat stroke, which is a medical emergency, life-threatening emergency. So that's why we kind of target 105 as the time we want you to stay weather aware. So again, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, if you're outside, maybe you work outside, you're planning on spending time outdoors those 3 days, please make sure you are taking those precautions. Again, breaks in the shade, staying hydrated, coming inside, in the air conditioning, portable fans, whatever you have to do. Your weekend forecast honestly doesn't look too bad at all. We're in the mid 90s today, upper 90s tomorrow. Again, it feels like temperatures will be hovering right around 100 to about 103. But overall, this is one of the better weekends we've had over the past few weeks, whereas it's still hot and humid, but it's just not as hot and humid as we have been. And of course, we have um, lesser rainfall potential. So we kind of have a few showers and storms here and there. Stephen is asking about the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. So let me say them exactly just so I do not mess them up because we would not want that. So heat exhaustion is when you're feeling faint and dizzy, excessive sweating, cool, clammy skin, nausea, rapid or weak pulse and muscle cramps. Okay, so this is how I remember it. So heat stroke is when you're not sweating, your body temperature oftentimes will be above 103. This person normally has a rapid and strong pulse versus a weak pulse, and oftentimes they can also lose consciousness. I think that was the number one thing is this with this person, if they are suffering from heat stroke, is if they are stopped sweating and that body temperature is above 103. And I know that this sounds a little bit weird, but also oftentimes they will stop when they stop at that excessive sweating, their skin will almost feel hot to the touch. And if you have an infrared thermometer, this will be especially, I think, helpful if you have kids. I have an almost 3-year-old nephew, and so I have an infrared thermometer so that let's say he was potentially suffering from some kind of, heat related illness and did not want me, to shove the thermometer in his mouth or something. Y'all know how kids are if you have them or, I mean, I don't have them, but, he's my nephew. The infrared thermometer, of course, uses the laser to kind of navigate that temperature. And that is a way that you can kind of take it, you can do their arm, you can do their mouth, wherever you need to take it without even touching them. So that's the biggest difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke is that they're not sweating anymore. Their skin is hot to the touch, um, and they have a throbbing headache, and oftentimes they can lose consciousness. And that's when there's actually a medical emergency and you need to call 911. All of those differences between the two actually live forever on our WCNC Charlotte mobile app. We did a whole weather IQ about it, actually, I think last year, but it lives forever on our app. So if you actually ever wanted to bookmark that on our app or, save the image, save the link, whatever you need to do during the summer, you always can do that as well. I also wanted to talk a little bit about this just in case people are heading to the water this weekend, because I know it is a nice weekend to do so. If you're heading to the beaches today, we are under a high rip current risk from Oak Island all the way up to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, including Hatteras, Ocracoke, all those areas, Kill Devil Hills, all the way up actually toward Ocean Pines, all the way really into new parts of New Jersey, under a moderate risk of rip currents, and then from Oak Island all the way through the Grand Strand and down toward Charleston, also under a moderate risk of rip currents. So far this year, I'll have to see if it has been updated. There have been multiple deaths related to rip currents so far this summer. I talked to the National Weather Service morning coordination meteorologist earlier this week just to confirm some of our numbers for our rip current story that aired. And it looked like none of them so far this year had been in North Carolina, but there had been a few in Florida. But I would have to double check that. But since 2000, there have been about 200 total in the Carolinas, which that's a lot of people. So just make sure, of course, you're being cautious of that. And only about 20% of those people are local residents. So that means 80% of them are coming from non-local areas. So we, of course, always need to be mindful of that. Okay. And it actually is the number one weather-related killer in the coastal Carolinas, whereas most other areas it is heat. Okay. Let's talk about radar. Alrighty, so there's no storms out there right now, but we are going to see a few areas of rain and storms kind of popping up here and there as we progress throughout the rest of the day. The storm potential, though, is pretty few and far between. So again, overall, the storm potential is relatively low, and we did see some isolated flooding the past few days. So that's good news for those who did see some of those storms and want to break. Maybe not so much for areas that still want some rain, but again, these pockets of rain here and there are helpful for the drought, but we never want it to be flooding, of course, in these areas. So after around about 3 o'clock, we have a few pop-up showers and storms. They look to be mostly between about 3 and 7 o'clock and then start to wrap up. It looks like so far Sunday does have a slightly better chance of a few pop-up storms. First developing around 1 o'clock, but again, staying relatively few and far between. When we say pop-up storms, that means pretty isolated. So, for example, you could see a few, in the mountains, a few in the Piedmont, a few in the Sandhills. So, not widespread, relatively scattered. So, you could kind of dot them randomly on a map. And then the same, of course, for Sunday with a few more compared to what we'll see on Saturday. But still, the big story remains, I think, kind of creeping back up to that increased heat and humidity by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as those are the days we especially want you to stay weather aware. Now, I want to give kudos to Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich because he did put a special graphics together that I'm going to show you guys in just one second. But before we get there, I want to show you the heat risk impact map. So I talked about Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and kind of how we would be creeping back up into that above average risk of the heat locally. So we have these maps about kind of how high our risk from heat starts to get as we get closer to these numbers, 105 and if not higher, the next 2 days are in the orange and red. So we're starting to creep back into that major to extreme, but we are well into that extreme by Monday. And then Tuesday actually looks to be one of the higher days as of right now. And then again, we're still into that major and extreme even as we head into Wednesday. So we haven't really had 3 days in a row where we've seen all of this red and purple in a little bit of time. So this is going to be, again, a lot of heat over the next few days, or really Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is the graphic. So Brad put together the data, and I know he's been talking about how so far has been one of the warmest summers on record in Charlotte. Of course, we began record keeping in 1878. There's a little bit of misinformation about this. Our ASOS station, which is where the temperature data is taken, which I did a whole weather IQ on temps in the shade versus the sun, used to be in uptown Charlotte. Then it was moved in about the 1930s to the airport. There is specific areas that it needs to be where it has to be, away from any airplanes. It is not near jet engines or anything like that. It's not getting warmer because it's right near the airport. It is in a separated area. That's just where they keep it. And actually, due to the urban heat island effect, it probably would read warmer if it was in uptown Charlotte because of that, but not even going to get into that right now. But officially, as of the last few days, we are currently #1 warmest summer on record in Charlotte. It has now surpassed the previous record, which was 1993, which I'm a little sad about because that's my birth year, and I kind of felt like that record was kind of cool just because it was 93. But anyway, so it has really been warm, and if you felt like that, and we've talked so much about the heat and humidity, we are right on track with that. I mean, we've hit 101. We've had a few records broken, and when we look at the feels like temperature, I showed you 105, 106, 107 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to have even more days where not only are we going to have the feels like temperature be high, but the air temperature too. We're hitting 98 or 95 today, 98 tomorrow, 99 Monday and Tuesday, and then 97 on Wednesday. All of those days are well above average. Our normal high this time of year is around 90. So again, it's not just the feels like temp, it's even the actual air temperature. And both Monday and Tuesday, we'll have a chance to get to 100 degrees. There are some models that are suggesting 100 to even up to 101. And again, the fact that we've already seen that so far this year, I definitely think it's a possibility. And I mentioned, of course, the overnight temperatures. Look at those overnight lows. I mean, anytime you're in the mid 70s, you're already starting off really warm. So again, this weekend, it's still hot and humid, just a little bit more typical for July standards with the feels like around 101, 103. This upcoming week, though, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we really want you to stay weather aware as the heat goes even more high. We're into the excessive category. Heat advisories will be likely all 3 days. If you want to know whether or not there's a heat advisory for your area, great tool to have, the WCNC Charlotte mobile app. If you have the location settings turned on, you'll actually get an alert right to your phone. So you'll have that all in the palm of your hand. It's also an awesome thing to have when you're out on the water, the lake, the pool, heading to the ocean. Even if you're not in Charlotte, if you travel, you'll still get the alerts to that area. And you can also track radar with that app, which I think is an awesome tool to have if you're out and about, because then, of course, you can know what's happening in and around your area and then get any updates from our team as well when you're on the go. Because nowadays, when you're out and about, you still want to know what's happening. That's just technology in the world that we live in. I hope everybody has a happy, safe, and healthy Saturday, a wonderful day as well tomorrow. I'm actually off. Chris will be in for me tomorrow. So I will see you guys next weekend on WCNC Charlotte. I know we had a shortened show today because of the Tour de France, but we are normal tomorrow, starting at 6 a.m. from 6 to 8, and then again from 9 to 10. But Chris will be here with Kayland. But I hope you guys have a great week, and I will be filling in for Brad actually this week. So I'll see you Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. 4, 5, 6, and 11 Wednesday, Thursday, and then midday and 4 p.m. on Friday. See you then. Have a great week. Stay safe and stay weather aware. Love you guys. Have an amazing weekend.